Could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
I'm Roger Gadiano. I'm an immigrant. I came to Delano in 1954. We were classified FOB, fresh off the boat. The reason was my dad was a U.S. Army veteran of 26 years that survived the Bataan Death March, in which 20,000 out of 70,000 U.S. and Filipino soldiers died on a 53-mile march. So we were granted an opportunity to come to the United States. So me and my dad brought the whole family. There were 6 of us, 2 girls and 4 boys. And we ended up in Delano because there were a lot of Filipinos here and there was work here. Even though my dad has a degree in chemistry, he graduated top of the line, valedictorian in the Philippines, and a degree in industrial chemistry. You know, being Filipino and what you are, you get relegated back to the back of the bus. But anyway, we did well, and I grew up in Delano. I was 7 years old. I grew up with a bunch of farm worker kids. A lot of the kids were half breeds, mestizos, half Mexicans, half white, half black, half Native American, half anything. Because up till 1948, California law, you couldn't marry out of your race. You couldn't own property. So California was as racist as just the other states. You know, I mean, it's not like that now. We're probably the best state in the union because we have more ethnic groups, more languages here than any other state. But back then, it wasn't. America was different then. But anyway, my exposure to Delano was that I worked in the fields. I worked, okay, 8th grade. I was 12 years old. I graduated. I got a Social Security card, work permit. My summer wasn't play camp. It was labor camp. We all worked at 90 cents an hour, and we worked just because we needed to buy clothes. You know, I mean, no one. There's a word in Filipino, in Spanish it's ricos. In America, it's rich. In Filipinos, mayamans. Well, there was no mayamans. There was no one rich. We were all farm workers. So we all went to the fields. We all worked. I mean, I remember going to school back then. September was everybody went back right after Labor Day. Back in the days, and we used to ask each other, "Where'd you work? Which camp were you in?" There wasn't play camp. Oh, I was with Zaninovich. I was at Kovakovich. I was at Pavich. I was with Karatan, and all these groups. And but we grew up as best we could. We knew. I lived just a couple of blocks from here. Back then in 1954, all the white people lived on the other side of the tracks, and all the brown people lived on this side of the tracks. And my dad had a business, and our business was on this side of the track. It wasn't on the other side of the tracks. It was red zoning. You know what that is, right? Discriminatory. But anyway, we made do, and a lot of my Filipino friends, they became doctors, principals, lawyers, you name it. So we lived the American dream, and luckily they got by. I got a degree in poli-sci, so I'm a little bit of a activist, progressive kind of guy, center, left, sort of. But I'm a non-vet. I was drafted. I still believe in the draft. I think you live in this great country, you ought to serve this great country. There's so many good things, so much privilege. Young people don't realize just how good they have it. And then they get spoiled like crazy. But being farm worker and everybody being poor, you understand the value of money. But anyway, I'm a non-vet. I got drafted. I got trained by the U.S. Rangers. I was a recon sergeant. I had a 9-man recon squad. Little old me. They used to drop us up in UE helicopters in the middle of nowhere for weeks on end. And we were reconnaissing the Ho Chi Minh Trail by the Cambodia, west of Saigon on the Cambodia side. We were in Cambodia most of the time anyway. But that's where the trails were. We just looked at the map. We didn't know. It's like a bunch of green fields. You don't know. There's no border. You just go there. Luckily I survived. A month after I left, my squad went out, and out of 15 people, 2 died and 6 got injured. I was lucky. I was already home. I was in Fort Ord. basic training brigade. I was teaching them how to shoot, you know, grenade launchers and stuff like that. But anyway, I do what I do in Delano because I know the history of Delano. When my dad opened up the store, we had a bunch of Filipinos that grouped together and built the store. It was huge. 1955 was purely 100% Filipino owned. And our main 65 to 70% of our business came in 3 months, August, September, October, November, 4 months. And what we did was we serviced all the labor camps from Arvin all the way to Fresno. In our books, just in this area alone, there was over 40 Filipino labor camps. And they had some, because of the miscegenation law and the fact they could speak English well and the property rights and all that, I would say 15 to 20% of the Filipinos married and then got, I went to school with mestizos. But the rest of them were still living in the camps. A lot of them lived there for 20, 30 years. They died there. The sad part, and they came to America for the American dream, thinking money was going to fall out of the trees. Not so. They ended up with the lowest jobs. And then what happened was when my mother worked at the store, so when an old Filipino, they call him a manong, died, she would go, "Oh, Roger, you go to the church, and you know Manong Berino died, and you go, you know, you pray for him, and you know." And the family wasn't there. We were there. A lot of them died alone, unwitnessed by their own family. We were the witnesses to their existence. So, you know, I know it happened more than once. So a lot of those Filipinos that came and sent money to the islands and helped their families should be thankful, but they died in vain with, you know, no gratitude. But they liked, one thing they liked America. A little bit of side news. I would go to the labor camps and hang out, and I'd go to the rooms there. The labor camps, believe it or not, when the war ended, the valley from Bakersfield all to Fresno, they were training pilots to fly the fighter planes. You know, the Black Sheep on TV. Remember that? To fly in the war. So when the war was over, they had all these billets, and so the farmers bought them all up. They turned them into labor camps. Because when you go to a labor camp, there are like 8 rooms, and they had 6 shower heads, and they had latrines, and they were all separated but no doors. See, that's military. If you've been in the military, that's how it is. And the farmers bought them. You go to all labor camps, they all look yellow. They all look the same. Some didn't look that way. I would say 90% had that look. So that's the Filipino, and most of the Filipinos lived on those camps. And the reason I know is when my dad would load up the pickup with my uncle, we'd load up. This is incredible, but nowadays they only send 5-pound sack of Calrose rice or whatever. We don't eat jasmine rice. That's all high stuff, you know. This is Calrose rice is Sacramento Delta rice. That's our good stuff. Sticky rice. That's what you want. But anyway, in the storage we had hundreds of 100-pound sacks of Calrose rice. We delivered them, at least put 6 of them in the pickup. And when we had at least 200 sacks of 50-pound sacks of rice, because when the labor, that's all they ate 3 times a day. So they did that, and then we provided them meats, beef, but a lot of and eggs and stuff like that. But I enjoyed the camp life. I have a lot of other stories that are rated X, but I'm not going to go into that, not yet. But yeah, because like you know, if there's men, there's women, especially single men. So that's how that thing works. But yeah, since 1954 I've been here. I lived here, and I was doing tours at Agbayani Village. It was now a national park site because, thank God, Barack Obama, my man, made it a national park site. And you should go there. Have you been there?
I have.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's so nostalgic. It's like a flash of the past. I mean, you're looking at those young kids. They're like 20s, 18, 20 years old. They were all the progressives, the activists, the do-gooders of the time. It's super. It's to me, it's a shrine. It's a mecca. That Agbayana village, to be honest with you, is the most visited Filipino site in the United States of America. People have museums and stuff, and I know because I do the tours. And I mean, sometimes they like today I'll do tour for about maybe 8, 10 people. Sometimes we get buses, 2 buses. And you know that, and I enjoy it because they're young kids, and I get to talk to them and ask them questions, and they're curious, and you know they're hungry for identity. I mean, I'm Filipino. What the hell am I doing in America? I don't look white. I'm short, and I got a flat nose, and I'm brown. I mean, you know, and you know, I mean, they want to know where they belong, and I tell them, don't worry, you got a rich history. Be proud of yourself, because I'm like you. I'm just older. You know, I tell them that, and then they like it. But yeah, any more questions? I told you a lot.
Yeah. What does today mean for you?
I don't know if you heard my speech, but prior to 1960, this is the big thing. This is the thing about Larry Itliong and the union and the strike. You know, what people don't understand is farm workers were the forgotten, unseen, unheard, got kicked in the ass. Who gives a shit? You work in the dirt, so you're nobody. That's what farm worker, you know. And the thing was, before, okay, the big thing, my point was, when I read my speech, was prior to the strike, 1965, there were no labor laws in the books in the state of California, maybe the United States of America. There was no minimum wage, there was no workman's comp, there was no seasonal unemployment, we didn't even have portables. If you had to take a dump or take a whiz, you had to find a tree. And if you work in a cotton fields when there was nothing, you're in trouble, you know? So, and you know, I mean, let me get the list. We farm workers we were neglected. They were unheard of. Let me see, what else? Okay. There were no overtime rules. There were no heat rules. I mean, I violated them myself. I used to run. When I got laid off by AT&T, I worked for AT&T for 6 years. We took analog systems with the size of a dictionary, which was one circuit for AT&T, and we put 24 in the size of a Marlboro cigarette pack. 24 circuits. We digitalized. I had to go to school in Pasadena for AT&T and how to wire these suckers up. So I was on the road for 5 years. So I understand. Thank God for modern tech, but I got laid off, and then I couldn't leave town because my mother was sick, so I had to take care of her. So I ended up back in the fields. So I became a field supervisor. I had 10 Mexican crews and 2 Filipino crews. Out of the 10 Mexican crews, 5 of them didn't speak English. So as a Filipino, I had to learn Spanish quick. And with the Filipino crews, they had like at least four dialects, and it was hard to navigate. But you know, you got to do a lot of sign language so you get by. But I did that for 15 years, so I understand. I mean, I worked in the fields myself, but I understand the work from when you prune them in January until through the seasons all the way to July, which they start picking, to harvest. Yeah, I mean, you know, and then after that we did raisins, and after that we did gondolas for wine grapes. I mean, I covered the whole year. So I understand that, and you know, and I truly enjoyed working in the fields. It didn't make much, but I enjoyed. I never brought lunch. At lunchtime, I would go by the Mexican crews, and they all say, "Hey, Rogelio," I go, "¿Qué pasó?" Says, "¿Tú quieres un taco? Simón, dámelo." I mean, yeah, give me one. I said, yeah, ¿quieres un más? Uno más? Oh, yeah, give me another one. But you know, they enjoyed me, I enjoyed them, but it was a good experience. And some of the, you talk about migrant workers, which I brought up here. Seasonal employment cut a lot of that out. But when I was running crew, we'd get Mexican families from Brownsville and McAllen, Texas, in the border, La Frontera. And they would be over here, and every year, that's the same faces, the same taco, the same everything. And you know, we got to know them. And they would show me their home in the States, and they would show me their home in Mexico. And I go, yeah, you're living good in Mexico. Yeah, but we worked our ass off. That's what they said. But you know, they're frugal. Just because they're Mexican, they don't speak English, they're not dumb. They know what's going on. I mean, Americans, you know, I learned a lot of racism in the service. We used to have these hayseeds, rednecks out of the Carolinas that thought if you weren't white, you were just ignorant. Well, and I was a sergeant. At Fort Ord, Louisiana, I had 100 guys. The guy that I was second in command with it, but his wife, he got in trouble with his wife, so I had to take over for 8 weeks, and they hated me. I was the shortest guy, and I had 100 guys, and some of these guys were like from North Carolina, South Carolina. Oh, they were just totally rednecks. I mean, they couldn't even hardly speak English, but you know, I was a senior at Cal State Long Beach, majoring in electrical engineering, and these suckers thought I was just because I didn't look like them, I was some dumb sucker that never, hey, I read Isaac Asimov, I read Frank Hubert Dune, I read, you know, I mean, it wasn't like, I grew up reading the LA Times every day. They delivered it. Then after that, the LA Examiner. I mean, Jim Murray, the sports pages, I knew all these suckers. I understood statistics and batting averages. And they looked at me like, you're short, you know, don't look like one of us, you don't. No, I'm not, you know, just believe me, I know what I'm doing. I wanted to tell them that, but, you know, young men, you know, when they come from that environment, they need to grow up and mix it, you know. Get out and see the world, you know, there's a big world out there. You know, there's a lot of other people besides you. You know, there's a goddamn, you know, 2 billion Indians, you know. There's another 1.5 billion Chinese. I mean, you're not the only one that exists in this global world, you know. You know, wake up. But, you know, they're provincial. Their thinking is very narrow and small-minded. It's kind of scary. I hope it ain't. You know, you would think that America would wake up with all this internet and stuff, but it's just garbage that goes through there now. I mean, you know, they ought to watch PBS and NOVA and Nature and all that good stuff that they got in there. You know, Frontline. I mean, that'll keep you abreast about what's going on. But and I send them money myself. I get suckered into the Bigathon when they put a group in there, and okay, I'll get those jazz things. Yeah, you know, I mean, but I enjoy the programming. I got educated. They keep me sane. You know, they don't talk nonsense. They talk truth, and they talk. I mean, when Ken Burns does stuff, I mean, I like his stuff. I mean, you know, I watched the Civil War twice, his series. I mean, these guys are good. I mean, they talk truth. You know, but. I wish America was like that, but you know, but thank you guys. Any more questions? Was that enough?
Yeah.